the globe that you are dealing with. I have a question that comes from our colleague, Dr. Vijay Modi, here at Columbia University, who asks, why is it easier to finance energy exports from African countries rather than supplying their own population's energy needs? So what are the difficulties, the practical difficulties that you see countries facing as they try to develop their energy systems, be it clean energy or fossil energy systems? What are the difficulties with the internal energy system development that are the big obstacles that sustainable energy for all sees?
I think the first thing is sometimes we're having the wrong conversation. And the conversation isn't about the energy you generate into your power sector, which is what it's been. It's when you're asking a country to actually go through a clean energy transition or have a net zero target, that is basically the greening of the entire economy. What happens to their transport sector? What happens to their budget sector? What happens to the way they develop? What happens to their buildings? What happens to the way women cook and men cook sometimes? And I think people forget that when we're talking. So what we've been trying to do and what we've been working is what is the true cost of the energy transition? So we worked with my government, the Nigerian government, on that, and we realized that for Nigeria, one of, or if the largest economy in Africa, to totally transition to a point of net zero in 2060, they have to get 100 million people out of poverty. They also want to have industry. All these things have to happen. It's going to cost 1.9 trillion. That is the tagline. That is assuming they're perfect policies, perfect political regimes, everything. And that is the cost. Let's say Nigeria has already budgeted some of that. That is still at 410 billion above business as usual spending. Where is that money going to come from when we have this debt distress issue? So first, I think we need to align and understand that there are many countries now on the continent that are spending easily 90% of revenue on debt servicing of interest only. So that means there's literally enough money left to pay the salaries of the civil servants. So there's no development. On top of that, you're like, oh, come and transition. And nobody's showing the pathway of how to do that. So that's one important point. If you don't know the cost of something, you don't even know how to finance it. So we're running around every COP trying to find 100 billion when one country needs 1.9 trillion, right? And that 100 billion is meant to affect all countries, and we never achieve it. But then bringing it down to the local environment. When you want to finance a project now, I don't care where you are, at least in Africa, it's going to cost you about 20% interest. If you want to do the right thing, renewable, do it well, do it clean, when it might cost you maybe 1 or 2% here. So it's not just. And if you take the option of, okay, you're going to borrow as a sovereign to the World Bank or the AFDB or any institution like that, you're looking at 3 to 5 years for something we're calling an emergency now. I don't care if it's first loss, mezzanine, all these nice words that everybody wants to say. And we should all stop lying that there's this huge pot of money somewhere that African countries can access, because it's not true. So I think we just need to be very, very honest and tell the countries, then they can now look at alternatives of what they have to do. But we can't continue saying, there's all this money, there's all of that, you just have to change your ways and your policies. Devaluation is a real thing. Interest rates are a real thing happening with these economies, and survival is a real thing. That's never really factored in when we talk about that, and that is the issue. Finance is the issue. I mean, President Kagame said here, Africans want to do the right thing. No one wants to be left behind. Nobody wants to be a second-hand market for obsolete equipment. But how do you actually do that if you don't have the money, and the institutions that are meant to help you just take so long and you might never get it? So I think those are the challenges.
I hear your comments as being a clarion call for new tools actually to address some of these gaps that you're talking about, that you've identified. And I think that's super important. Some colleagues of ours here at the Energy Center together with colleagues from the World Economic Forum and the World Bank, have been looking at one such niche, which is currency exchange rate risk and the ways to address that risk. We did so out of the spirit that there are new tools needed. Simply wringing one's hands and admiring the problem, entirely insufficient. So let's try to see whether there are creative ideas for what those new tools can be. Let me ask another